The amount of destruction is evident even in this small town. A person. It's been one of the first people we've seen in hours. Hello there, good sir. May I ask what you were doing today?
I found this half-eaten piece of bread in a bush. This is my only food that I've had in a while.
Are you bringing this home to your family, or?
My family all died.
Is the situation really this bad in Syria for you?
Yeah.
Could I hear a message from you for the lawmakers of the world?
Please let us come into your countries. We can't live here forever. Over here, it's just destruction and then starving, and eventually we're just all gonna die.
Thank you.
Sir, I have an important message from... What are you watching?
I'm watching a news story about the effects of the Syrian war on the refugees themselves. It's very moving. I think this reporter, I think he's going to do very well. He seems very competent. Anyway, what was your message?
This is an envelope from Congress, or a letter from Congress, and it's confidential, so I can't see.
Right. Anything
I'll
else?
take my leave.
Anything else? Congressional meeting tomorrow. Those darn bureaucrats. Anyway. Interesting.
Good afternoon, Congressman Durham. Good afternoon, Congressman Durham.
Good afternoon.
Okay. So, are we all ready for the questioning?
Right, so allow me to...
So, tell us about this thing you're introducing.
Wait. So, if you allow me to just kind of give you the story of the situation right now. The Syrian crisis is still at large, as we well know, being in the government. Fighting continues, especially between the regime and the resistance forces, including, not limited to those two groups, as ISIS is still a major factor. And millions of Syrian nationals are displaced. So generally these immigrants are immigrating to other nations such as Germany and Turkey. However, there's been a lot the rise of resistance. If you look at the Chemnitz incident in Germany, Western nations are becoming less hospitable to those fleeing from the war-torn nation, primarily because their governments have not done enough to address ongoing structural violence against these.
What has stopped us from doing this plan so far?
Well, obviously, since you two are Republicans, you should well know that the GOP is very staunchly opposed to any type of immigration policy that isn't building a wall. In addition, Americans as a whole, because of the amount of structural violence, they are very biased against
So all Americans, or?
the general American consensus.
So how we get past this?
So if you allow me to continue giving a story, American influence in the region has proved largely ineffective in that it obviously has not stopped the 7-year war. That's the only remaining alternative, is taking these people out of the nation in which the persecution is occurring. America has a moral obligation to relocate these refugees because, first and foremost, America stands as the world leader in humanitarian efforts, and to ignore this crisis or to only allow a very limited amount of people into the nation would directly project the idea that they're not worth worrying about, which should only serve to increase the amount of structural violence in Western nations and force these people to live in extreme persecution.
But what about the attitudes of our citizens?
If the United States government takes a stand against the amount of structural violence and bias that is currently present, it will go a long way towards combating the entirety of the structural violence altogether.
And how many refugees will the U.S. be allowing in?
So if you listen to my plan, and I'll say right now, the United States federal government should omit Syrian refugees from the annual cap on refugees, provide clear and accessible avenues for application to the USCIS through the embassy or online, and increase funding for the USCIS to enable efficient handling of the applicants.
So you're going to let in all the immigrants that want to come in? To the U.S. come in?
All of them who pass the standard refugee test, of course. Okay. Those who initially qualify for refugee status will be allowed into the nation.
Okay, so I see that you are alleviating the stress on these refugees, but what about our own problems? What about our economy?
So contrary to popular belief, refugees do not, in fact, harm the economy in any way, and in fact they largely bolster the United States economy. So allowing more in would only serve to aid our economy as a whole. If you allow me to bring up the study. Okay, so a study by Chad Sparber of Colgate University clearly illustrates that more racial diversity, and especially those from refugee countries, Muslim nations, African Americans, the amount of racial diversity has a direct correlation with the amount of macroeconomic productivity across the United States. In addition, passing this plan would the way the plan combats ideological, like the structural violence, because the United States federal government, as I said earlier, taking a stance, combats the current ideological standards that the government has tacitly allowed that affirm this amount of structural violence. Therefore, the plan is practically the only way to combat the structural violence in an internal situation.
Okay, well, other than our moral obligations and helping the refugees, I guess, by letting them come to the U.S., what else will it help do or solve?
Well, of course, passing this plan establishes a moral, as I said earlier, establishes a moral precedent that the West is not ignorant of this tragedy that's befallen the Syrian nationals, and in fact, the West will continue to aid these people as much as they need help. Hence the omission from the entire refugee camp altogether.
Will this give the president more power through the plenary power doctrine?
The plenary power doctrine is largely a myth, and it doesn't really. There's no. Okay, given the current status of the president in general, and that he is staunchly against all sorts of Muslim immigrants as a whole, affirming this plan and passing this plan through Congress would almost certainly not influence.
Well, Senator Darwin, seeing that you are part of Congress, I'm guessing that Congress will be a large part in passing this plan or having it passed.
I would assume, yes.
And by when is it going to be finished? And when is it going to be? When are the effects going to happen?
So, given that we have a moral obligation, I would say that the ideal timeline would be as soon as possible. However, that's likely not going to occur given the amount of Republican opposition in the Congress.
Then when?
So, the ideal timeline would largely be dependent on how fast the plan can pass without being filibustered and such. I would estimate anywhere between a couple weeks to a month.
So less than a year?
Of course. Yes, 2 weeks or less than a year.
Thank you, Congressman Darwin, for your time.
Thank you.
So, sir, what do you think the Republicans will say about the plan?
Well, I'm expecting a lot of arguments about the changes in American jobs, which I of course predict. Probably something about
Shoot, sir, I think you have a meeting that I didn't tell you about, so you should probably go over there.
you're fired and
This isn't hired.
George told me it didn't exist. You know what? She's fired.
Do you feel like you're welcome in these countries?
No, I do not. Due to the reactions of the people, I don't want to go there if if I go there, if I'm just going to be hurt and beaten. There's no difference between the war-torn country of Syria and all these other countries where people are willing to kill us.
Well, that's the news for today, everyone. This is Aerith Juan with your small poor child refugee. And that's all for today for KNE.